Hi everyone, it's me, Blazeladios. I decided to do something different and talk about something quite a few of you are probably confused or lost about, especially if you're new to NGS, and that's gearing up. By no means you need to follow what I'm talking about, as content outside of gigantics, speedrunning, cocoons, or solo queues really is not warrant in maxing, but gearing up can go a long way for you as well as help others in your MPAs out for getting faster runs. On top of this, gearing up gives you something to work towards, which I feel is very important when playing PSO2 or NGS, or in general for that matter. With that being said, let's start with weapons. For weapons, you have 5 weapon series to choose from: Catalea, Forces, Vialto, Resurgir, and Straga. All 5 of these weapons compete with each other for potential options, which you should decide based on your class and playstyle. This is what each of them brings to the table. The Catalea series covers swords, knuckles, twin machine guns, and wands. Its potential Mustard Might grants you 21% potency at max potential level, which will grant you an additional 5% potency for being at full HP, making these particularly strong options if you can maintain upkeep on the potential. The Catalea swords and twin machine guns make the most of his weapon series, as do knuckles. The biggest downside of his weapon series is that there isn't a whole lot of multi-weapon options with this series, unless you play tech or fighter. However, you can typically find these weapons dropping in Mount Magnus rank 2, making them pretty easy to obtain for what they're worth. Next, we have the Forces series. The Forces weapon series follows a similar concept of the Catalea weapon series, covering twin daggers, wired lances, rods, and rifles. The potential Bastion unit grants you a 40% damage reduction barrier when your HP is at 100%. While this generally isn't super useful, if you've got fully enhanced NGS units for gigantics hunting, the 40% can be a difference between a 1-shot and a 2-shot, potentially making this a pretty nice series to have. Bastion unit also provides 24% potency, making this one of the stronger potentials of the 4 common drops. And due to having wired lances as a multi-weapon option, you got the option for enhanced verticality for twin daggers. Forces weapons can be found in Racel Forest rank 2, which makes it pretty easy to obtain. Finally, we have the Vialto series to finish off the common 4-star drops. Vialto covers Double Saber, Talis, Partisan, and Launcher. The Vialto series has a potential of Meditation unit, which gives 24% potency alongside 10% offensive PP recovery and 50% natural recovery speed, which allows for faster PP regeneration. Most, if not all, the weapons that this series covers benefit strongly from this due to eating up quite a bit of PP for their respective techs and photon arts. Due to having the Talis in this weapon series, Vitallo benefits Fighter Force and Hunter Force quite a bit due to the added PP recovery the Talis weapon action provides with multi-weapon, while giving fighters slightly better mobbing tool spread shot if needed. Vialto weapons drop from Vanford Research Facility, making them rather easy to obtain. With the common 4-star drops done, it's time to move on to the uncommon weapon series that you can get from rank 2 zones, veteran enemies, and or gigantics enemies. I'm talking about the Resurgir and Straga weapon series. These 2 series are not direct upgrades over ladder free, but they provide alternate options at the cost of being hard to obtain. There is also one slightly niche 3-star option in the Glyzen series, which currently isn't out. First, we'll start with the Straga weapons, as these follow a similar trend to Forces, Catalea, and Vialto series, in which they only cover certain weapons from classes. In Straga's case, it has a single weapon to represent each class: Sword, Double Saber, Launcher, Rod, Wand, and Twin Machine Guns. Its potential, Berserk unit when maxed, gives you 27% potency in exchange for taking 8% more damage. The level 3 potential has 26% potency and 10% more damage taken. While taking more damage may sound risky, there are affixes like Dreadkeeper 2 or Form Soul 2, which can be taken to mitigate this without losing too much damage. Just don't take guard affixes to mitigate this, as better affixes exist. In many cases, however, the Catalea twin machine guns and sword, as well as the Vialto Double Saber, might be more appealing for potentials and lack of damage resistance down. In the case of Launcher, one might prefer Resurgir, as not being able to multi-weapon a rifle with Launcher hurts Ranger's damage. While these weapons are strong, these are not complete upgrades over already existing weapons, which is something to keep in mind if you choose to use one of the Straga weapons. The lack of multi-weapons also hurts the Straga series. The Glyzen series are trade-ins and droppable weapons obtained from the current event. These weapons have 40% potency at max, and they are 3-star rarity weapons. However, every 2 attacks will cause an extra attack, which can inflict elemental downs with a 20-second cooldown. Furthermore, these are elemental weapons, which allows them to hit elemental weaknesses and can properly use weak to thunder affixes. These weapons are okay, but they're not better than the other options that you have to choose from. The Glyzen Talis should be pretty good, however, for its utility, and being able to inflict elemental downs is always extremely nice. Outside of this, however, the Glyzen weapons are pretty niche, but they serve their purpose. Finally, we have the Resurgir series. The Resurgir series has a unique benefit of covering every weapon type across all the classes in exchange for slightly less base power and weaker potency on its potential. Resurgir's potential dynamo unit will grant you a boost to your critical hit chance by 18% at max potential for 30 seconds when you perform a successful sidestep. Crit is overall really good in NGS since critical hit damage no longer appears to be damage variance related. Due to its ability to cover every weapon, Resurgir allows for some really helpful multi-weapon combinations, such as rifle plus launcher, and then knuckles double saber with wire lances. With our options for weapons covered, let's move on to units. Compared to endgame classic PSO2 units, NGS units boast higher defenses and higher single stat weapon potency, but lose out on all attack potency than a fixed endgame unit from PSO2 would have. By no means are these straight up superior to NGS units, however, it should be noted that your gains from switching from classic PSO2 units to NGS units varies based on your actual final affixes. A lightly affixed claws unit or anything less is likely to be outdone, whereas your typical Guardian Soul units are likely to bring you more use. For units you have 4 options: Vialto, Catalea, Qualda Armor and its variants, and Yant. Of all of these units series, only the variants of Qualda Armor found in red boxes and Yant units are worth actually investing in. If you can't afford a full set, Catalea units are your best bet otherwise. With that said, let's go a bit more into depth into what these units can provide. Qualda Armor units can be found in Racial Force and provide you with 6 PP per unit and 51 defense. Overall, these don't bring much to the table outside of being placeholder units. Catalea Armor per units provide you with 20 HP and 2 PP per unit alongside 53 defense, and can be found in Mount Magnus rank 2. These units are much more flexible than the Qualda Armor units due to the increase in HP at the cost of a bit of PP, however they are still underwhelming in comparison to the best options. Vialto Armor units brings some defensive options to the table with 30 HP and 1% damage resist per unit at the cost of no PP at all. These units can be found in the Vanford Research Facility ruins, but like the other combat area units, these are pretty underwhelming. The damage resistance they bring to the table is pretty useful, but these units are best to be avoided investing in. With the basic units covered, it's time we go on to the special variants of the Qualda Armor series. What separates these units from the underwhelming counterparts is that they bring PP and a potency increase to the table for 2 stats, and each variant varies in the potency it increases. Qualda Armor Arga will give you 4 PP and 1% to your melee and range potency. Qualda Armor Belta will give you 4 PP and 1% to your range and tech potency, and Qualda Armor Shiza will give you 4% PP and 1% to your melee and tech potency. The catch to these units is that they are account-bound units that can only be found in a red chest, so you only ever find 1 of each per account. Essentially, if you want to maximize your melee and tech potency, you need to buy 2 more Shiza units from the player shop, for example. The actual cost of these units varies per ship, however on ship 3 for example, Arga is currently the most expensive. They also provide you with 54 defense per unit, putting them above Catalea units in terms of defense. Finally, we have the Yant units. Yant units stand out from every other unit series available due to their unique properties. Stat-wise, you get 56 defense and 10 PP and 2% all attack for a single unit, making them pretty strong overall. The catch, however, is that the stats come at a cost of negative 20 HP and negative 50% status resistance per unit. Despite this debuff, and what many others might claim, this debuff is almost negligible. Minus 60 HP from a full set can be mitigated with affixes such as Il Domina and Gigas 2 affixes on all of your units and weapons, but alternatively through using Dreadkeeper 2 alongside Gigas 2 affixes as a cheaper option. The status resistance, however, might as well not exist unless you're intentionally trying to get statused. While the lizard-type enemies may become the bane of your existence as they can easily inflict status on you, you would basically need to be standing in front of them just so they can actually inflict the status ailment on you, which means unless you want to stand in front of it and get status, there's a good chance you might never be statused by enemies, period. While Next Vera can inflict burn on you, as burn as a status will only damage you in roughly ticks of 4 damage for a second or so, which can be healed up right away anyways. Overall, this negative isn't a hindrance to gameplay unless you make it one. With actual gear out of the way, let's talk about affixing finally. Affixing in NGS is pretty straightforward. Simply get 10 of any cap that you want and affix it to your weapon and or unit. In terms of affixes, the best you can possibly get as of now are as follows. Gigas X2 provides you with 2% potency to a single stat and 10 HP. This drops from Gigantics enemies. Stat 3 provides you with 2% potency to a single stat. This drops from enemies in general, just being in the field or even Gigantics enemies. Form Soul 2 and Title Soul 2 are the go-to souls for melee classes. Form Soul gives 2% potency and 2% damage reduction, while Didal Soul trades damage reduction for 5 PP. This drops from Formers, and in the case of Didal Soul, drops from the Axe and Sword Didals. This includes the Gigantics versions. Pedestal 2 provides 5 PP and 2% range potency. This drops from Pedesfera. Next Soul provides 5 PP and 2% technique potency. This drops from Nexvera and Nexalio. Magnus, Rissel, and Danfernote provides 1.5% potency to their respective stats. This is a cheap option that drops from the combat zones. Il Domina provides 1.5% potency to all your stats, and 5 HP and 3 PP, making it a top affix, but also pretty costly. You can only obtain it via exchange. Dreadkeeper 2 provides 15 HP and 4 PP on top of 1.5% potency floor increase and 1.5% damage resistance. This drops from veteran enemies. Alt Secreta provides 1.5% potency to all your stats and 1.5% potency floor up at the cost of minus 10 HP and negative 1.5% damage resistance. This drops from Alter type enemies. Master 3 provides 1.5% all potency, 1.5% potency floor up, and 1.5% damage resistance, but at the cost of being extremely expensive resource wise and generally not worth it, as you can only obtain it via exchange. Weak to Thunder 2 provides a 3% potency increase to all enemies weak to Thunder. Pretty strong if you plan on soloing urgent quest bosses like Pedesvera and Nexvera, but requires elemental weapons to actually use properly, which is limited to Talis, Rod, and the Glyzin series weapons currently. Now, I'm going to address why I'm not mentioning defensive affixes. Affixes that only increase HP or damage resistance should be avoided as they don't provide a damage increase at all. The affixes mentioned above provide damage on top of HP and PP depending on the affixes, making them straight up better. Having tons of HP means nothing if you have no damage, and generally speaking, fully enhanced NGS units provide you with enough defense to live anything currently in the game outside of Gigantics, which is a lost cause trying to tank, because unless you're a hunter, for example, you're probably going to get one shot anyways. Floor potency is mostly worthless on its own currently, so ignore that too unless you get a potency booster or some other kind of benefits, such as Dreadkeeper providing HP and PP, as well as damage resistance. The last thing you need to worry about with gear is Fixas. That being said, it isn't necessarily needed to have a level 5 Fixa right now. Something like a level 3 Fixa can often be all you really need at this point in the game. If you can, grab a level 2 Fixa, Fatale, or level 2 Fixa Attack, and you're basically set. That being said, that's all you need to know about gearing up in NGS in its current state. Gearing up in NGS isn't too bad overall, as the majority of the cost comes from enhancing units and weapons. That being said, when it's done right, it can be done mostly cheap. Remember, don't be afraid to cheap out on affixes if one affix is too expensive for you. You can always go back and affix it later when you've got enough capsules for it and use a lesser version of it while you collect what you need to make a better version. Happy affixing and gearing up everyone, and thanks for watching.